Imagine opening your mailbox expecting junk ads, bills, maybe a coupon or two, and instead finding a $325 parking ticket issued to a car that hasn't been in your possession for days, because it was stolen. That was the exact nightmare Daniel Ruiz found himself living. And what happened after he walked into Judge Judy's courtroom would expose a truth so bizarre, so unbelievable, that millions of viewers would replay the episode just to confirm they heard her correctly. This story didn't begin with arrogance or entitlement like so many infamous courtroom cases. It began with something far more frustrating, a simple man who did everything right, and a system that punished him for it. Daniel Ruiz wasn't flashy. He wasn't dramatic. He wasn't the type who shouted or caused scenes. He was a 34-year-old mechanic who worked long hours and took pride in the few things he owned, especially his 2014 Honda Civic, the first car he had ever bought on his own. To him, that car was more than transportation. It was proof that hard work meant something, that even if life wasn't always fair, effort still paid off. But all of that disappeared one rainy Thursday night, when Daniel walked out of his apartment to find an empty parking spot where his car should have been. At first, he thought he'd misremembered where he parked. Then the realization hit him in a cold wave: his car was gone. Vanished. Stolen. He filed a police report immediately, provided every detail he could remember, even pulled security footage from a nearby laundromat that showed a shadowy figure breaking into the car and driving away. He wasn't angry. He was devastated. But he handled it the way responsible, honest people do, calmly, respectfully, and by the book. He never imagined that filing that report would be the beginning, not the end, of his problems. 2 days later, Daniel opened his mailbox and felt his heart skip. There it was, a crisp white envelope from the city's Traffic Enforcement Division. The words, "penalty notice," glared at him like an insult. He tore it open and stared in disbelief. A $325 parking violation. Issued to his license plate. Time-stamped 10:42 a.m. The day after his car was reported stolen. Daniel felt something snap inside him. How could they ticket a car that wasn't even in his possession? How could the city punish him for being a victim? He called the traffic office, waited on hold for 40 minutes, tried to explain. The clerk brushed him off. "If you want to contest it, you can take it to court." He contacted the towing company listed in the letter. They told him the car had been legally towed from a restricted area and that he owed storage fees. Storage fees, for a car he hadn't even touched in days. Every door he knocked on closed in his face. Every attempt to explain was met with robotic responses and bureaucratic walls. It wasn't just disrespect. It was dismissal. A system treating him like a liar instead of a victim. After 3 weeks of back-and-forth battles with the city, Daniel finally did something he never thought he'd have to do: he filed his case with Judge Judy. And when he walked into that courtroom, he wasn't looking for revenge. He wasn't hoping for viral fame. He simply wanted someone in authority to listen for once, to look at the facts and acknowledge the insanity of the situation. But what Daniel didn't know was that Judge Judy had already noticed something about his case before he said a single word. The defendant was the tow company's operations manager, a stiff-jawed man named Colin Barrett, dressed in a crisp shirt and tie like he was attending a job interview instead of defending a questionable tow. Colin walked in with the swagger of someone who'd bullied countless car owners into paying questionable fees. In his mind, Daniel was just another irresponsible driver, trying to dodge responsibility. He sat down with a smug expression that instantly annoyed the courtroom audience, though he had no idea the trap he was already stepping into. Judge Judy scanned the paperwork in silence, flipping each page with that surgical precision she was famous for. Her expression didn't change, but the sharpness in her eyes did. She spotted the first inconsistency within seconds: the timestamp didn't align with the reported theft. She spotted the second within minutes: the signature on the tow documentation was different from the issuing officer's name. And she spotted the third just before she addressed the courtroom, something Colin clearly hoped nobody would notice. When she finally looked up, the air seemed to tighten. "Mr. Ruiz," she said, her voice calm but carrying an unmistakable edge of purpose, "your car was stolen on the 14th, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Daniel replied, his voice steady but exhausted. "And this ticket was issued on the 15th?" Judy continued, holding up the citation. "Yes, Your Honor." She turned her gaze to Colin, who stiffened under the sudden pressure. "Mr. Barrett," Judy said with that cold, surgical tone that always signaled danger, "explain to me how a stolen vehicle received a parking ticket while it was supposedly in the custody of your towing company." A long pause filled the courtroom. Colin swallowed hard. And Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, her expression turning lethal. "Because something here," she said, tapping the papers, "is very, very wrong." That moment, those words, became the spark that ignited a case America would never forget. The moment Judge Judy shifted her attention to Colin Barrett, the temperature in the courtroom seemed to drop 10 degrees. Daniel sat quietly, hands folded, his nerves visible but his truth unshakable. Colin, however, adjusted his tie with the kind of forced confidence that only guilty people wear. He came prepared with rehearsed lines, clipped explanations, and a folder full of documents he thought would overwhelm a regular judge. But Judge Judy wasn't just any judge, and within minutes, he realized it. "Mr. Barrett," Judy began, her voice razor-sharp yet deceptively calm, "how exactly did your company discover this vehicle in a tow-away zone if the police report shows the car was stolen and unaccounted for at that time?" Colin cleared his throat. "Your Honor, our patrol crews identified Mr. Ruiz's car illegally parked. We followed procedure and issued a ticket before towing it." Judy tilted her head. "Procedure?" "Yes," Colin continued quickly, "our officer followed every step. Ticket issued at 10:42 a.m., tow initiated at 10:50 a.m., vehicle stored at our lot by 11:35 a.m. All standard practice." It sounded smooth. Confident. Too confident. Judge Judy lifted the ticket from the desk and examined it again. "Mr. Barrett, who issued this ticket?" "Our enforcement officer, ma'am," he replied. "What's the name?" "Officer Holman." "Excellent," Judy said. "Then explain to me why Officer Holman was not on duty on the 15th. The silence that followed was immediate and suffocating. Colin's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. His eyes darted to the papers in front of him as if hoping the answer would magically crawl out of the folder. "Your Honor, there must be a clerical mistake. Maybe the system autofilled the wrong name." Judy leaned forward, her expression unblinking. "A clerical mistake that just happens to involve a stolen vehicle being ticketed? Convenient." Daniel watched quietly, almost in disbelief. For the first time in weeks, it felt like someone actually saw the absurdity he had been living through. Someone with power. Someone who wasn't brushing him aside. Judge Judy continued dismantling Colin's explanation. "Let's address the timeline. You said the car was ticketed at 10:42 a.m., correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And then towed?" "Yes. But according to your own tow log," she lifted another paper, "your crew didn't begin patrol in that neighborhood until 11:10 a.m. Colin stiffened. "Your Honor, those logs are—" "Your logs," she snapped, "are part of your defense. You submitted them. And they show your tow truck wasn't even in the vicinity when the ticket was issued." The courtroom murmurs grew louder. People shifted in their seats. Even the bailiff's eyebrows lifted. Daniel watched Colin grow smaller, his arrogance shrinking into something desperate. But Judy wasn't done, not even close. "Mr. Barrett, stolen vehicles do not appear in no parking zones, write their own tickets, and then magically teleport into tow yards." Her tone sliced through the room. Colin forced a laugh. "Your Honor, with all due respect, there may have been a computer glitch. The GPS tracking system isn't always reliable." "Oh, I'm sure," Judy interrupted, "it's unreliable only when your company needs it to be." She flipped another page. Here's something else interesting. 2 days before Mr. Ruiz's vehicle was towed, another stolen car was sighted. Same neighborhood. Same pattern. Ticketed, towed, fees charged, then sent to auction. Colin's face lost its color. And 2 days before that, another one. Judy held up the paperwork like evidence in a criminal trial. Each one stolen. Each one mysteriously found by your patrols before the police even finished their reports. The murmurs intensified into a low rumble of disbelief. This is a pattern, Judy said, her tone colder than ice. Not a mistake. Colin finally broke. Your Honor, with all due respect, we simply enforce the city's rules. If cars are illegally parked. Illegally parked? Judy snapped, raising her voice for the first time. These cars were stolen. The owners didn't park them anywhere. Daniel felt something unfamiliar, a spark of hope. Every door he tried to open slammed shut. Every explanation he tried to give was ignored. Every attempt to be heard led nowhere. But Judge Judy wasn't ignoring anything. She was listening, not just listening, dissecting. Colin attempted one last defense. Your Honor, perhaps the thieves abandoned the vehicle in a no-parking zone. We did what we're supposed to do. That would be very convenient for your business, wouldn't it? Judy replied. A stolen car parked perfectly for your tow truck to show up moments later. With no officer present, no verification, no oversight, and full storage and towing fees for your company. Colin blinked rapidly, sweat forming at his hairline. And the best part, Judy added, is that these tickets allow your company to bypass the standard 72-hour hold. Cars can be auctioned sooner. Isn't that right? Colin stayed silent. Answer me, Judy demanded. Yes, Your Honor, he whispered. The entire puzzle began to click together. Daniel wasn't just dealing with a mistaken ticket. He had stumbled into something bigger, darker, and far more corrupt than he ever imagined. Judge Judy set her papers down and delivered the line that sucked the oxygen out of the room. Mr. Barrett, this doesn't look like stolen cars being recovered. It looks like stolen cars being harvested. Colin's jaw trembled. Daniel felt his pulse in his ears. The audience sat frozen. And Judge Judy's eyes sharpened with a fire Daniel had only seen during her most legendary moments. What happened next felt less like a courtroom dispute and more like a criminal investigation unfolding in real time. Up until this moment, Daniel thought he was just fighting a ridiculous ticket issued to a car he no longer even owned. But Judge Judy had seen enough scams, cheats, and liars in her career to recognize when something much bigger was hiding under the surface. And the deeper she dug, the more the truth began to rot. Mr. Barrett, she said, lifting yet another document, I want you to walk me through the GPS logs for your tow truck on the morning of the 15th. Colin's eyes flicked to the papers in front of him. His fingers trembled. Your Honor. I don't have a detailed recollection of that morning. Judy raised an eyebrow. Good. That's why GPS exists. She turned the page toward Daniel first, then toward the cameras. According to the tow company's own logs, the truck assigned to the alleged ticket was located on the opposite side of the city at the exact time the citation was issued. A wave of whispers slithered through the audience. Daniel leaned forward, his brow furrowed in disbelief. He had no idea there were GPS logs. He had no idea the tow company even tracked their movements that accurately. But Judge Judy knew. And she was putting the pieces together faster than anyone expected. Judy continued. Not only was the tow truck nowhere near Mr. Ruiz's neighborhood, it wasn't even on duty until 11:10 a.m. The ticket was issued at 10:42 a.m. Her voice lowered to a dangerous whisper, the kind that made guilty defendants barely breathe. So tell me, Mr. Barrett, who issued this ticket? Because it certainly wasn't your officer. And it certainly wasn't your tow truck. Colin opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He looked like a man watching his final lifeboat sink. Judge Judy didn't stop. She flipped to a second stack of papers, police records, city reports, and logs her producers pulled before the hearing. "Do you know what concerns me most?" she asked softly. "This is not an isolated case." Daniel's head snapped up. "What do you mean, Your Honor?" Judy held his gaze for a moment. Then she read aloud from the documents. 5 other cars. All stolen. All from the same general area. All ticketed within 24 to 48 hours of being reported missing. All towed by Mr. Barrett's company. All sent to auction within days. The courtroom collectively inhaled. The air felt electric. Heavy. Inevitable. Daniel felt his stomach twist. "My car was going to be sold." Judy nodded. "Yes. And not weeks from now. In 2 days." Colin shook his head wildly. "Your Honor, you're making assumptions." "Assumptions?" Judy barked, slamming the papers onto her desk. "Mr. Barrett, I've handled over 20,000 cases in my lifetime. And let me assure you, I know a pattern when I see one." Daniel felt coldness crawl through him. He thought he had bad luck. He thought he was being ignored by a lazy system. He thought the towing company was just incompetent. But this was intentional. Calculated. Predatory. Judge Judy pressed on. "Here is what I believe. Your company monitors active police reports. When you learn a car has been stolen, and the owner is unlikely to locate it quickly, you find it first. Not to return it. To profit from it." Colin's voice cracked. That's not true." Judy ignored him. "You place a fraudulent ticket on the windshield. That ticket allows you to claim the car was illegally parked. And once you issue that ticket, you can legally tow it." She picked up the citation Daniel received and held it high in her hand. "This," she said, shaking it lightly, "is the key to your entire operation. One fake ticket transforms a stolen car into a towable, billable, sellable asset." Colin swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing like a buoy in a storm. "And the cherry on top," Judy continued, "is that you file the paperwork in such a way that the police believe the car has already been recovered and processed. So they close the case. The owner can't track it. And your company gets paid, whether through fees or through auctioning the vehicle." The audience was frozen, staring at Colin like he'd just confessed to a felony on live television. Judy turned back to Daniel. Her tone softened but remained serious. "Mr. Ruiz, I'm going to tell you something you deserve to hear. This wasn't your fault. You were never supposed to find your car. You weren't supposed to fight this far. You were supposed to get buried under paperwork like the others." Daniel felt tears sting the edges of his eyes. He blinked them back. Colin tried again, weaker now. "Your Honor, with all due respect, you can't prove intent." Judy's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "Intent? Mr. Barrett, you forged a ticket to a stolen car. You altered timestamps. You falsified tow logs. You sent stolen vehicles to auction before owners even finished filing their reports. This isn't negligence. This is a business model." The entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Then Judy delivered the line that would go viral, quoted by millions. "Mr. Barrett, this isn't towing stolen vehicles. This is harvesting them." Daniel felt the entire weight of the truth hit him. Colin looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. And Judge Judy prepared herself for the most explosive confrontation yet, one that would tear apart the last lies Colin had left. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Even the air seemed heavier, as if the courtroom itself understood the gravity of what Judge Judy was about to unravel. Colin Barrett sat rigidly in the defendant's chair, shoulders hunched, fingers gripping the edge of the table as though bracing for an impact he already knew was coming. Judge Judy wasn't finished, not even close. "Mr. Barrett," she began, her voice dangerously calm, what concerns me is not just this fraudulent ticket. It's the timeline. She turned another page. According to the city impound records your company submitted, Daniel's car was processed as abandoned in just 1 hour and 17 minutes after the ticket was issued. The audience murmured. Daniel's jaw dropped. He stared at Judge Judy, stunned. 1 hour? How is that even possible? Judy nodded, eyes still locked on Colin. Exactly. According to municipal law, a vehicle can only be processed as abandoned after a minimum of 72 hours. Yet somehow, Mr. Barrett's company bypassed that requirement with lightning speed. She paused, letting the tension simmer. Explain to me how that happened, Mr. Barrett. Colin opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His lips parted, quivered, then closed. It was like watching a man realize that every excuse he had rehearsed was now dead on arrival. Judge Judy wasn't waiting. She continued reading, her voice slicing the silence. Additionally, you filed the car into the auction queue before the official tow documentation was logged. Before the police even marked the vehicle as recovered. Before Mr. Ruiz had a chance to receive a single update. Her gaze sharpened into a glare that could strip paint off a wall. That is not a coincidence. That is orchestration. Daniel couldn't hold back. So they were preparing to sell my car before anyone even officially knew they had it? Judy turned her head just enough to answer him. Yes. They knew exactly what they were doing. The blow hit Daniel like a punch. He exhaled shakily, the betrayal hitting deeper now that the truth had a shape. Judge Judy faced Colin again. And the most disturbing part, she said, tapping the papers, is the camera footage my team requested from city surveillance. Colin's entire body tensed. Judy held up a screenshot. This, she continued, is your truck arriving on Eastwood Avenue at 10:46 a.m. That is 4 minutes after the time stamped on your ticket. And do you know what's missing from this footage, Mr. Barrett? She lowered the page slowly. There is no car. A gasp exploded from the audience. Daniel blinked. Wait, what do you mean no car? Where was my car? Judy leaned forward. That's exactly the question we asked the city. And here is the answer. Another document lifted. The car was already in your company's possession before the ticket was placed on it. The courtroom erupted in stunned whispers. Daniel felt his heart plummet. So they placed a fake ticket on my car after it was already stolen? After they had already taken it? Judy nodded. Yes. They placed the ticket in a separate location, photographed it for documentation, then filed it as if it were legitimate. Colin clamped his eyes shut for a split second, a subtle admission of guilt that didn't escape anyone, including Judge Judy. Her voice hardened. In my courtroom, lies don't just fall apart. They disintegrate. She flipped to the final piece of evidence. This, she said, is an internal email from your dispatcher. We received it through a subpoena after your company refused to supply complete logs. Colin's head shot up, panic flashing in his eyes. Judge Judy read the email aloud. Vehicle recovered. Ticket it and file for expedited auction. Owner unlikely to contest. Timestamp, 10:31 a.m. Daniel felt a chill rush through him. That's almost 10 minutes before the ticket was even created. Judy set the papers down with finality. Exactly. Your company decided to tow and auction Mr. Ruiz's car before you ever laid eyes on it. Before you even pretended to issue a citation. Before anyone confirmed whether it was actually abandoned, stolen, or simply misplaced. Her voice cut deeper with every word. This isn't negligence. This is deliberate fraud. Colin's face was losing color. Sweat glistened at his temples. His breathing grew shallow. Your Honor, he stammered. I wasn't aware of that email. Judy's response was brutal. Oh, you were aware. You just weren't aware that I would have the entire chain of communication. You and your company prey on people like Mr. Ruiz because you assume they'll never fight back. You assume they don't have the time, the resources, or the courage to challenge you. She leaned in, voice low and razor sharp. You assume nobody is watching. The audience didn't move. Not a cough. Not a breath. Judge Judy pointed directly at Daniel. And without this man bringing this case here, your operation would have continued. More stolen cars. More fabricated tickets. More innocent people losing property you had no right to touch. Daniel felt the first flicker of pride through the fear and frustration that had been tormenting him for 2 weeks. He didn't feel victorious, not yet, but he felt seen. Judge Judy faced Colin one last time. Mr. Barrett. I suggest you prepare yourself. Because this is no longer a parking ticket. This is a conspiracy. And with that, she ordered the bailiff to bring forward her final notes, notes that would set off the most explosive ruling Daniel, Colin, and the entire courtroom were about to witness. The courtroom felt eerily still, like the silent breath right before thunder strikes. Colin Barrett sat frozen, his shoulders slumped, his face drained of color, his entire world collapsing under the weight of every lie Judge Judy had dragged into the light. But Judge Judy wasn't done. Not even close. She took a long breath, leaned back in her chair with the unmistakable stance of a judge who had reached her final conclusion, and then slowly stood up. When Judge Judy rises, the world pays attention. Mr. Barrett, she began, voice low, steady, and more lethal than a shout, I want you to understand exactly what you and your company attempted to do here. She lifted the stack of evidence, emails, timestamps, surveillance stills, falsified logs, and tapped them against the desk. You didn't just steal a car. You didn't just fabricate a ticket. You orchestrated a full-scale fraud scheme designed to make innocent people pay for crimes committed by your own company. Colin swallowed hard, but his throat seemed unwilling to cooperate. Judy turned to Daniel, and her expression softened for the first time in the entire trial. Mr. Ruiz, what happened to you is disgusting. You were victimized twice, first by criminals who stole your car, and then by a tow company that decided to exploit your trauma for profit. Daniel felt a lump rise in his throat. He nodded, unable to speak. Judge Judy turned back to Colin. Her voice snapped like a whip. And then, after all of this, you had the audacity to sit in my courtroom and lie. Repeatedly. Confidently. And poorly. A ripple of laughter rolled through the audience, but Judy raised her hand sharply and silence returned. This is not funny, she said. This is criminal. The word criminal echoed in the courtroom like a detonating grenade. She lifted the city's towing regulations and slammed them on the bench. You violated every single one of these: unlawful impoundment, fraudulent ticketing, falsification of municipal records, unauthorized auction preparation, and obstruction through false testimony. Colin blinked rapidly, like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare. But the nightmare was very real. And to make matters even worse, she continued, your internal email proves that this was not a mistake. This was part of a pattern. An operation. She stepped closer, her eyes burning into him. You targeted people who were vulnerable. People who were unlikely to fight back. People who trusted the system. Daniel felt emotion swell in his chest, rage, relief, vindication, all tangled together. Judge Judy raised her hand, signaling she was ready to deliver the final blow. Here is my ruling. The entire courtroom leaned forward. First, the fraudulent ticket issued to Mr. Ruiz is void. Not reduced. Not amended. Void. Colin flinched. Second, your company will return his vehicle immediately, free of charge, and pay for all damages that occurred while it was in your possession. Daniel covered his mouth, overwhelmed. Third, Judy said, her voice rising, you will reimburse Mr. Ruiz for every expense he incurred because of your misconduct, car rental fees, transportation fees, lost work hours, towing charges, every single penny. Colin's eyes widened in panic. And fourth, she continued, I am awarding Mr. Ruiz punitive damages. The audience gasped. Because your scheme wasn't just unlawful. It was predatory. It was malicious. And if he hadn't brought this case here, you would still be doing it. Judy leaned in so close to Colin that he visibly recoiled. You are not just irresponsible. You are dangerous. She turned toward the bailiff. Bailiff, please hand me the referral forms. The courtroom stiffened. Referral forms meant one thing, criminal review. Judge Judy signed them with deliberate, icy precision. These documents will be forwarded to the city attorney, the district attorney's office, and the state towing oversight committee. Colin's breath hitched. I am strongly recommending, she said, that your company be shut down and investigated for fraud, racketeering, and unlawful seizure of private property. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. He had expected justice, but not this level of justice. Judge Judy wasn't done. She pointed directly at Colin. You thought Mr. Ruiz would be too overwhelmed to fight back. You thought he'd simply pay the fine and disappear. But he didn't. He showed up. Her voice sharpened like steel. And lucky for him, and very unlucky for you, he showed up in my courtroom. She leaned forward. And in my courtroom, schemes like yours die. Silence engulfed the room. Colin's shoulders collapsed fully now, his hands trembling on the table, his entire facade of confidence shattered into dust. Judge Judy turned to Daniel one last time. Mr. Ruiz, justice has been served. Your car will be returned, your name cleared, and you will be compensated. Thank you for having the courage to bring this case forward. Daniel managed a single grateful nod, his voice breaking as he whispered, Thank you, Your Honor. Judge Judy lifted her gavel. And to the towing company, she said coldly, Welcome to consequences. Bang. The gavel struck with a finality that shook the room. Case dismissed. The audience erupted, gasps, murmurs, disbelief, admiration, all crashing together in a wave of emotional electricity as Colin Barrett's corruption collapsed in front of millions. Daniel exhaled the first real breath of peace he'd felt in weeks. And Judge Judy, with her signature mixture of fury and precision, walked off the bench leaving behind a courtroom, and a nation, shocked by what she had just exposed.